And with that, we will begin. And let me just say, awesome. I wasn't sure about my screensaver or my actual presentation. And what we're going to be talking about for the next 45-ish minutes is the 5 biggest mistakes I see presenters make and how you can avoid making them yourself. I am a public speaking and presentations coach. I started my business in 2006. And in the last 16 years, I have worked with hundreds of presenters in every industry imaginable, and some I didn't even know existed before I worked with a particular company. And this is what I have gleaned working with these hundreds of people. So let's get started.
And she's awesome.
Thank you, Liz. One of my unsolicited feedback. The first biggest mistake I see presenters make is focusing where they are not supposed to be. If we are to be honest, when we think about giving a presentation, we typically think about ourselves first. And if we are reticent presenters, or we're fearful of presenting, or we think we're not very good at it, the thoughts go in our head something like, I can't believe I volunteered to do this again. I can't believe I got myself roped into this again. I'm a terrible presenter. This is going to go horribly, etc., etc. If we don't mind speaking, we like speaking. We know that it's a great thing to do to build our business. We think, all right, an opportunity to present, an opportunity to talk about my product or service. Well, I want to tell them this, and I want to tell them this, and I really think they should know about this. And we give a lot of time thinking about what we want to tell our audience, what we think is important for our audience. And if we are being honest, the thing we think least about is our audience. Of these 3 things, this is the component that gets the least amount of mental bandwidth. So what I'm going to urge you to do from this day forward and forevermore is to put your audience first. Your audience is the most important part of any presentation, and they know it. They know it. You are here today, either live or via Zoom, because you want to learn something that will make you a better presenter. You are not here for me. And it doesn't hurt my feelings, because you're not supposed to be here for me. You're supposed to be here for you. Same with your audience. This is where our focus needs to be. And then with that focus on our audience, we want to build a presentation around them, around what they know about around what they care about, around what keeps them up at night, what worries them. We want to build the presentation around how much they know about our topic or don't know about our topic. Do they even know they should care about our topic? Because if they don't, that's where you have to start. All about them. The least important part is you. I've written well over 100 articles at this point. I like to write. I write articles, and one of the articles I wrote years ago that actually ended up on the Huffington Post was, the title of it was "Afraid of Public Speaking? Nobody Cares." Nobody cares if you're afraid, except maybe your mom or your husband or significant other. They care, they feel bad, but nobody's sitting in the audience. First of all, they don't know you're afraid, so don't tell them. And they don't care, because that's not why they're there. They're there for themselves. So the first solution to focusing in the wrong place is to turn your focus 180 degrees away from you and onto your audience. Put yourself in your audience's seat. Imagine that you are one of them. Before you start copying and pasting slides, before you create a mind map or any kind of brainstorming thing, sit down. And I work with some Brits, and I love them, and they have this great expression, and have a think about. That's what they say. Let me think about it. Have a big, long think about your audience. First mistake, first solution. The second mistake that presenters make, they think about their audience. They do. Big, big, long think about the audience, and then they throw everything they want to tell the audience into their presentation. and they do it in their own industry language. So let's frame the solution to this, which is you need to be doing the heavy lifting for your audience as far as your content goes. You need to do the heavy lifting because, as you know from being an audience member, and we've all been audience members way more often than we've ever been presenters, me included. And I have a background before this of being a teacher at a business school. Still, I'm an audience member more than I'm a presenter. Have you ever gone to a full day conference where all you do is sit and listen to presenters? And some of them can be awesome, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have a lunch you don't have to make. Somebody puts a plate down in front of you and you get to eat it. And then maybe at the end of the day, there's a cocktail hour, which is like fantastic. And there's delicious hors d'oeuvres that go by. And you get in your car to drive home and you think, oh my God, I'm not sure I should be operating a vehicle right now. I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. How could I be so tired? All I did was sit and listen. Listening is really hard work. So we want to make it as easy as possible for our audience to listen to us. Here's what we do. As far as heavy lifting goes, we create a structure for our presentation. This is solution part A. I'm going to give you one example of a structure, my favorite structure, because it's so easy. And I bet you're already using it, a lot of you. And that is, I call the magic rule of threes. I name it magic. Does anybody know the rule of threes? The rule of threes is simply the concept that human beings organize their thoughts in threes. We do. So I'll give you some examples. Stop, yield, and go. Past, present, and future. Here, there, and everywhere. The Three Little Pigs. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Three Blind Mice. The Genie Grants You Three Wishes, Larry, Moe, and Curly. If you go and see a Broadway play, boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. 3, it's everywhere. And I'll tell you, now that I've brought this up to you, for the next 2 days, you're gonna be seeing threes. It's gonna be the creepiest thing ever, like Children of the Corn. But it's not me, it's just threes, right? So if we know humans organize their thoughts in threes, let's make it easy. Any of you that do status reports for clients, you know a great format is, here's where we were the last time we met, here's where we are now, here's where I'd like to see us be the next time we meet. 3, so easy, and brains love it. Now today, this presentation is organized in 5, the 5 biggest mistakes presenters make. That's intentional. I will not go above 5 in a presentation. It's just a known thing for sales presentations, sales pitches. You never go beyond 5 benefits. It's diminishing returns. If you've ever sat in church or temple or synagogue and listened to a great minister, priest, rabbi give a sermon, they open up, they have the first point, you're with them, the second point, you're with them, the third point, you're with them, but it's getting tougher. The 4th point, you're still with them. The 5th point, you're hanging on by your fingernails. You're praying that the next thing they say is, in conclusion. They bring up the 6th point. Did you know what you do? You think to yourself, wonder what I should pick up at the grocery store. You're done. You're finished. And you're mad because you just worked really hard to remember all that stuff and they went beyond your limit. There's studies, I could talk about this all day long. Never go beyond 5. Great rule for presentation, structure in 3. Sales pitches, you can have 5 benefits of your product or service because your audience is going to take home 3. Could be 1, they go, 1, done, sold, I'm working with you. A lot of times there's one biggie, but there's 2 others that are important. Okay, part B to your solution is to be sure that you are speaking in language that your audience can understand. You are all experts in your particular industry. I am sure. That's great. A presentation is not the place to prove it. And often we can't help ourselves because we're so embedded in our industry and we're so knowledgeable that these 5-syllable words are flying out of our mouths and we didn't even realize that it happened. So you want to be really sure when you are giving a presentation that you're truly speaking to just about the lowest knowledge level in the room, and you want to avoid acronyms, initialisms, and let me explain the difference. An acronym is a word that is built by the first letter of each word. So TARP, from the Great Recession, Troubled Asset Relief Program, TARP is a word. It's a green thing that we cover our wood with so it doesn't get wet. As opposed to an initialism, which is FDIC. That's not a word. So it's an initialism. And all of our industries have these, in addition to tons of jargon words. We do, I do, we all do. I worked for the Junior League years ago. They had a 3-ring binder filled with acronyms, initialisms, and jargon words. So you can't feel bad about it. It's not you, it's everybody's everything. You want to avoid these things, and let me tell you why. When the audience is listening to the presenter, and these initialisms and acronyms and jargon words are flying out of the presenter's mouth, the audience member is thinking, I don't understand what that presenter is talking about. How could this be? I'm a smart, grown-up, educated woman, and I don't understand this. Maybe I'm not so smart. Maybe I'm stupid. Now I feel bad, because feeling stupid, I feel bad. And who made me feel stupid? The presenter. Now I don't like the presenter. Right? Because the presenter is making me feel stupid. No, avoid all of this. Solution, part B, number 2. Mistake number 3. This is my favorite. This is, you could be the best presenter. You can sit down, think about your audience for days. You can build a structured presentation that is audience focused, that is not using words they don't understand. And if you create slides that require lots of reading, you've just undermined everything that you were doing. And let me explain. So I'm going to take a minute to walk you through this, because this is so important. And we all, almost all of us, use slides. And they can be great. It's not PowerPoint that's the enemy. It's user error, as we were saying. So here we go. First of all, what we know is that human beings take in information in a presentation via 2 ways. One, via images, via things that you see, photographs, charts, icons, and language. Spoken language and written language. Agreed? This is where we take stuff in a presentation. As we process those images and language, here's what happens in working memory. Images are processed by something that we are going to call the inner eye, because we're not going to use the scientific word because it's jargon. And we don't need to, who cares? I know what it is, you don't need to know. Language, both written and spoken, is processed via one processor in working memory. We are going to call this the inner ear and the inner voice. When you read something, your inner voice reads it to your inner ear. And when someone talks to you, your inner ear processes them talking to you. When you talk out loud to yourself, which I do all the time. And Suzanne here's a therapist. And my therapist says to me, talk to yourself out loud. So it's really important. Talk to yourself nicely out loud. Talk to yourself like you would a friend out loud. So when I talk to myself out loud, my inner ear processes that. One processor in working memory. So now that you know this, you've had this quick 2-minute science class, let's experience this. I'm going to show 2 slides. The first one I'm going to show is a typical slide. It's not even going to look that bad to you. It's like a slide that you see every day, all day long, all the time. And I'm the speaker, so I'm going to present it to you. Here we go. Great visual aids do 4 things. They should never be self-explanatory. They should require the speaker to explain them. They should never be read aloud by the speaker because A, you can read, and B, you can read somewhere between 3 to 10 times faster than I can speak. They should always be a synergistic component. You plus your visual should equal exponentially more than your true individual values. And last, your visuals should help illuminate what you're talking about in ways you by yourself can't do. Now I'm taking you to a blank slide, and I did that on purpose because for as long as those sentences remain on the screen, you will continue to try and read them. Even if you read them successfully, you'll go back to the top and read them again. We're like moths to flame when it comes to something to read. If you don't believe me, try saying to yourself, today I will read no billboards. Good luck. You can't. We do it. We're subconsciously competent at reading. We can't help it. Blank green slide, because that's the only way I can get your full attention. If those words were still there, I would be competing for that. You cannot read and listen at the same time. And you know this because while your inner voice is trying to read those words to your inner ear, I am talking. Your inner ear is trying to listen to two people talking to it. What do you do for those of you who have children or more than one child, or like me, have a husband who loves to talk while the television is on? Do you say to these people, stop, and only listen to one person at a time, right? You're right. You can only listen to one person at a time. So you can't listen to your inner voice reading to you at the same time you're trying to listen to the speaker. What just happened in your working memory? Well, there was not an image to process on that slide. It was all words. So your inner eye was working not at all. Inner eye processes images. The inner ear and inner voice, however, were a totally different story. Your inner voice was reading to your inner ear at the same time I was talking to your inner ear. And that causes cognitive overload, which is as bad as it sounds. Your brain. And if we want our audience to be able to take in, make sense of, and remember our presentation, right? Well, when you have cognitive overload, you can't process. You can't even take in the whole message, let alone make sense of it and then remember it. You can't remember something that you couldn't take in the first place. So your audience's retention is going to be really poor. They can't, because they couldn't take it all in. Because they can't listen and read at the same time. Now let me show you a slide that allows me to talk about all of that without causing cognitive overload. Ready? Here we go. Great visual aids create synergy between the presenter and the visual. Synergy is when one thing added to another thing equals exponentially more than the true value of each of those things added together. In a presentation, you, the speaker, plus your images should create synergistic levels of understanding for your audience. No visual should make sense on its own, because if it can, you can just email them the visual. There's no need in getting dressed up and getting out of your house, right, like that, and then standing in front of a, and doing this. No need. Ideally, your visuals should help you to explain something in ways that you by yourself in your narrative cannot. Now let's take a look at what happened when you were experiencing that kind of slide. First of all, I was using the inner eye because I had icons on that slide that just had simple labels underneath them. And even 1 + 1 = 3 is really processed as an image. Now, if this were the Pythagorean theorem or was some kind of calculus or trigonometry, no, I would want to be quiet while you process that. But 1 + 1 = 3, no, that's easy. The inner ear, meanwhile, only had to process me talking. Because that was the only language that you really needed to process. And when you use these two processors together, the way nature intended them to be used, what research shows us is that you get retention upward of 80%. That is what we are after, because if any of you have done pitch presentations, which are beauty pageants, where you're one of 5 businesses pitching, you are desperate to be remembered when you leave that room. That's the idea. It's not, you know, they walk out of the room and they never think of you again, no matter what presentation you're giving. It's a great marketing opportunity. It needs to be remembered. Think, show, and tell. When we were in kindergarten, right? You sat on the floor and one of your classmates came in with the new toy they got for Christmas, or the new puppy or the new baby, and they showed it and they told you about it. And it was riveting. Same with this. You're not going to get up and leave because you don't know what this means without me explaining it to you. It's engaging, which is also what you want. You don't want them reading your slide and then surfing the Nordstrom site for the new pair of shoes. This keeps them engaged. Okay, so you may be thinking, okay, Debbie, I get it. You beat me over the head with this. I feel really sorry for your husband and children right about now. Because you can tell when I feel this way about something, I get pretty emphatic. And so now what you're probably thinking is, okay, but how do you do this? How does this work? What does this look like? So let me give you a couple of before and afters of slides that I've done for clients that are either nonprofits. These were all slides that were presented at conferences, so nothing that you shouldn't be looking at ever. Here we go. I'll give you a minute to look at this. I'm not going to talk. So this was from the Connecticut Clean Energy Fund. They wanted to show where the money was going that had been allocated for them. This is a pie chart. So easy. Whenever you have a lump sum of something and you want to show how it's split up, a pie chart is a great way to do it. Now I want everybody to notice, because what I see all the time is I see a great pie chart, but then under the title, there's 3 lines of 7-point font, right? And then under here, there's 3 more lines of 7-point font. The one that really breaks my heart is when it's an XY chart and up this side are the 3 lines, because necks, heads are heavy, right? And you gotta go like this to see it. You're hurting yourself on top of everything. It's nuts. That's why you're there. You're there to tell them this stuff. They don't need to read it, they have you. Here's another one. Be quiet, just glance at this. This is like a pharmaceutical industry, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, you can see it's like, whoa, this is a lot to read. So we turned it into a smart art, which is in PowerPoint. It's loaded right in PowerPoint at the top. You hit insert and it's right there. One of your choices is smart art. Click on it and you have choices for things like process, relationship, hierarchy. You want to use the appropriate one, and you do not want to fill it with text. But this was a paradigm is shifting. It's going from something that's product focused, direct selling model, treating symptoms. Obviously, the gentleman that I created this for is an expert in the pharmaceutical market. These were just labels for what he was going to put meat on the bones. He wouldn't have even said these words, actually. He would have said different words and elaborated. Same here. Going to one that is more healthcare focused, that is B2B, where we're focusing on keeping people from getting sick. What's amazing is this was from probably, oh my gosh, 10 years ago at least. And I've seen the pharmaceutical industry going this way. So that has been kind of cool. So that's this, super easy, smart art. You can do it. You could do it this afternoon. Here's another one. This was from the US Fund for UNICEF. Their head of HR was giving a huge presentation at the World at Works conference. And she was talking about their their performance ratings. Now, this is not bad. I want everybody to know as a chart, this is not egregious. But there's a better way to show this. Couple of things I want to call your attention to. This gives away the story. Cost of merit increases artificially high. Now I've told you the story. So all you really have to do is read this and then you know what I'm going to be talking about. Don't do that in the heading. People do that all the time. They give away what the whole slide is about, like the point they're going to get to at the end. They give away in the title. Don't do that. And then these two things, findings, duh. I mean, I don't need that written on the historical distribution of performance ratings. Thank you. Couldn't I just say that? So here's how we changed it. These are not huge changes, but it makes a difference. Performance ratings, 2019 to 2022. I just changed, frankly, the dates because it's from a long time ago. And then I turned it into a column chart, because when you look at this, you immediately see that what was going on was that they were giving everybody a superior performance rating, and with a superior performance rating comes a commensurate bonus, and lo and behold, they're blowing a big hole in their budget. So it took them a couple minutes to go, how is this happening that we're like not meeting our budget year after year? Oh, I get it. We're giving everybody a superior and we've attached money to it. This is a great engaging story, isn't it? When you show it this way, it's like, wow, this is interesting. Oh, now I might have a chart come in next to it after I show this chart that then shows where the budget went out of whack, but I would not put both of those charts up at the same time. I'd tell this story and then tell another story. You want to give your audience the visuals a bite at a time so that you know everybody knows what they're looking at is what you are talking about. That's really important. You wouldn't walk into the Museum of Modern Art and go up to one of the Impressionist rooms where there's so much to see and let everybody loose and then go, so this Van Gogh right here. And meanwhile, somebody's over in the other corner looking at a Picasso. That's what happens when you put everything on the slide at once. You have to be a good freak. Okay. Make your visuals an aid for your audience, please, not speaker notes for you. That's not the purpose of a slide. Mistake number 4. People brag about this to me. You know, I don't prepare when I'm going to talk. I just, whatever comes to my head. Maybe I jot down a couple notes an hour before people are coming, but no, I find off the cuff works better for me. And when they tell me, I'm just kind of going, really? Wow, good for you. And meanwhile, I'm thinking that would be like me inviting guests over for dinner and they walk in there, they're all dressed up. I mean, the women are anyway. And the men look really nice. And they walk in and then I open my refrigerator and say, so God, you guys, what do you think we should have for dinner? I've got a couple of hot dogs here and a little bit of hamburger. I don't think it's gone bad yet. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine? You don't wing it. You do it. Presentation twice. Yesterday, I spent probably an hour and a half in my office with this, and I've given this a lot. And this morning, I clicked through it again. You have to practice, and here's the thing. You have to practice out loud, in your head. Clicking through your slides and thinking about what you're going to say does not count as practice. That counts as thinking. I'm telling you, and you know this if you've ever done it, it's the most terrifying thing in the world. You click through your slides and you're thinking about what you're going to say, and then you get up in front of real life people and words start coming out of your mouth and your brain is doing a fire drill. You're running around in your brain going, you moron, what are you doing? And meanwhile, you're still talking. And people are still there, right? You should. Well, guess what? If you practice out loud, you would know that. You have to practice out loud. In fact, I called the first time a presentation a stumble through, because you're gonna get from the intro to your first big point, and you're gonna stop, because you have no idea what the transition is. Of course you don't. You've never talked it through out loud. You have to. This is the special secret to great presentation. Where if people did this, so many of that other stuff that I was talking about wouldn't happen in front of real life people, because they would have caught it. Please, 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 please practice out loud. And lastly, and this one breaks my heart a little bit, because when I started my business, and before I started my business, as I said, I worked at a business school for the better part of 5 years, which I loved, and I taught presentations training. And before that, in fact, during that time, I was the talent show lady at my children's elementary school for 7 years. And funny, and 150 kids and teachers and parents were in this thing. It was huge. It was amazing. In fact, cute, funny story. One night, my husband and I went to see a movie pre-pandemic, right, when people went to the movie theaters and crowded in the movie theaters, and I was waiting. He was in the men's room and I was waiting for him, and suddenly I look and there's a person about this tall in front of me, and she's looking up at me like this, and she says to me, "Aren't you the talent show lady?" This is the cutest thing. Like, what are you doing out in the wild? Are you supposed to be in the all-purpose room? It's so funny. Anyway, you expect with children that there's going to be hesitancy and unsureness and all that kind of stuff. What shocked me working with professionals, CFOs of huge companies, senior executives, was how many people said to me, "You know, I just want to be able to be a speaker like our chairman of the board," or "I just want to be a speaker like Tony Robbins," or like Oprah Winfrey. And I'm thinking, first of all, Tony Robbins is kind of an odd guy. Like, he's genius. I've watched him. He's great. I love what he is. But I wouldn't, if I were a man, I wouldn't want to be Tony Robbins. You know what I mean? And the fact is, you can't. You can only be you, right? So be yourself. It is critically important in presentations, because for the first few minutes, an audience is listening to you. They are subconsciously figuring out how much they're going to trust what you are saying. And if they do not deem you to be the real deal, they're not going to trust what you are saying. This is why never, ever, ever let any presentations coach put gestures on you, tell you it's a good idea to do this or anything. If you are someone who does not use your hands when you speak in engaged conversation with friends, do not use your hands when you present. If you're someone who does, if you like gesturing and you gesture in animated conversations with friends and family, gesture. Do you? Oscar Wilde is attributed to have said, as having said, "Be yourself, everyone else is already taken." I love that. So, to wrap up, and then I will open this up for questions, avoiding the top 5 mistakes. Number 1, don't have your focus in the right place. Keep your focus on your audience where it belongs. Turn your focus 180 degrees. Number 2, do the heavy lifting for your audience. Do not give them the kitchen sink, all in my own industry lingo approach. Number 3, make sure your visuals, your slides, whatever you're creating them in, Keynote, what's that other one that goes around that everybody talks about? Prezi or PowerPoint, doesn't matter. Just make sure they're aids for your audience, visual synergistic aids for your audience. Practice your presentation out loud. And lastly, be yourself. Before we open it up for questions, I'll share with you some ways that you can be connected to me. I wrote a book. There's a copy of it in the back. Nail It. It was published in 2014. It was reviewed by Kirkus Reviews in 2016. It got a very nice review, so I feel very confident recommending it to people. Happy to connect with you on Facebook. I have a B-Speak page, B-Speak presentations on LinkedIn. Absolutely connect with me there if you'd like. This is my email address. It's also in the link to where you signed up. And so if tomorrow, the next day, you think of a ask today, just email me. I answer people's questions all the time. And here's my website, about to be redone and gorgeous. But the stuff is there. It's dated, but it's there if you want to go see it.
That's actually all the time we have for today. We're welcome to hang out in this room. There's no reservations, but we'll let everybody online get back to work. This will be posted on YouTube, and Debbie's information will be shared along with my own. So thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah.